Hey everyone, it is Jamie Joe right here at Madlet Musings, and I'm super happy to have back with me my buddy Erica Vetsch. Hey Erica.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I don't think
Good.
people realize how long we've known each other. Like we've known each other a long time.
Yeah, it's been yonks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a good long time, but yeah, so I'm excited to have you here. And like I do on every podcast, we just kind of sit and shoot the breeze and see what comes out of our mouths. So it's a little bit dangerous, but it's kind of fun
Kind
that
of
way.
like our everyday
Yeah,
conversations.
pretty much. Except I have like a dictionary of Erica Vetsch. What's the word? Is it colloquialisms or things? Like, because you always have these one-liners that you have that fly out, and I'm
No,
like, those are just the best. Like, where did you come up with that? I don't know. It's just like natural instinct for you. But
could be.
it could be. I don't know. Maybe we might get a couple of them. So, listeners, if you're listening, get your notebooks out because at some point, Erica Vetsch is going to drop a one-liner that you're going to want to turn into a quote and put all over your social media because it's just the
Oh
best.
man. Like I said there's a very fine line between famous and notorious, and I'm not sure I always walk it very well.
You're going to end up with a page on brainyquotes.com someday that's just all Erica Vetsch quotes that people cut and paste for their social media later on in life.
Hashtag goals.
Yes, right. But you actually have a book coming out, and
I
it's
do.
coming out in September, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
September 17th, I believe.
Awesome. Awesome. And this is airing in August, so people can probably pre-order it now
Yes.
and get it ready. So it's just shipped to you the instant it's out. But to do that, you need to know the title. So the title is A Thieving at Carlton House.
It is.
Did I get that right? Okay.
Yes, yes, yes.
All right. So tell us all about it. Everything.
All right.
Spoilers, everything.
Well, no spoilers because,
Yeah.
you know,
Of course.
it's a mystery.
Oh, wow,
Um,
that's a problem.
Yeah. So, A Thieving at Carlton House is actually the first book in the of Cloaks and Daggers series, but it's actually book number 8 in the Haverly universe. So, starting back with
Oh,
the first book in the series, The Lost Lieutenant, there are 3
yes.
books in the Serendipity and Secret series.
Yep.
Then the next series is the Thorndyke and Swan Regency Mysteries, but they all take place within the same Haverly universe. So there will be characters that are crossing over. The timelines are pretty tight. There is a novella in there in the Joy to the World Regency Christmas collection
I didn't
that
realize that was
is,
part of it.
yeah, is related to the series. So a side character gets her
Okay.
own story. So this is the first book in a new series, but it's also a continuation of a much larger series.
Okay.
I am currently working on the second book in this series and have a deadline kind of breathing down my neck.
Hmm.
Um, but this Of Cloaks and Daggers series takes one of the characters from Thorndyke and Swan, Uncle Bertie, and makes
Yes.
him the
Sorry.
hero of this next series.
I just got excited. I love Uncle Bertie. He needed his own
So,
series.
yeah, the story takes place in 1816 London. So it is a Regency era.
Hmm.
And there is a theft at Carlton House, and Carlton House is the London home of the Prince Regent.
Okay.
So it was ostentatious and it was opulent and it was everything that the future King George IV was. Um, Sadly, the building's no longer there.
I was gonna say I've never heard of it as being an actual
Yeah,
building.
it
Okay.
it was raised. They took out as many of the valuables. Some of like the fireplaces and
Okay.
the chandeliers and things you can find in other stately homes now in
Oh, really?
England, but the
Okay.
building itself is no longer there.
Aw.
So I worked actually off of floor plans and artistic drawings that
Okay.
someone
Okay.
had done contemporary
Yeah.
to that time. But yeah, there's a theft that takes place at Carlton House, and Sir Bertrand Thorndyke, Uncle Bertie, is tasked with finding out who the culprit is.
That's awesome. I love it. Have you been to like the area where Carlton House used to be? Because I know you've been to England.
I have been to England and I have not been to London.
Okay.
We
You
spent
haven't
most
been to
of our
London?
time in, no, we flew into Manchester
Oh,
And we stayed up in the Peak District mostly and went up
okay.
to Northumberland and Scotland. So we were in
Okay.
the north part of England,
Yep. Yep.
because that's where a longtime family friend lives. And we stayed with her and she was our chauffeur.
Well, that makes sense then.
She and her husband took us all over. So
Yeah. Yeah.
London will be on the next agenda, I feel.
Okay. Okay. And you got to ride a double-decker bus. That was like my
Yes.
bucket list, and I've done it now, and it's the coolest thing ever. I don't know why.
Yes.
It's just the London thing to do. You just
It's
have
the
to do it.
experience,
It is. Yeah.
get your picture taken by a red telephone box and,
Mhm. Mhm.
ride the bus. And
Yep.
so,
Well, basically what we have then is a continuation of a world that you've
mhm.
sort of created based on actual locations like London, etc. But the Haverly, tell us a little bit about that. Like, what is that world?
I call it the Haverly universe because one of the key figures that shows up in every book is
Okay.
the Duke of Haverly. His name is Marcus.
Hmm.
And he is the hero of the second book in the series, which is The Gentleman's Spy, which will let you know that he is a spy or an agent for the crown.
Hmm.
And so he's got a lot of fingers in a lot of different pieces of the pie. And
Yeah.
it's kind of how Sir Bertie gets roped into investigating a theft at a royal palace. Um,
Yep.
is at Marcus's instigation. So
That's cool. Yeah. And
Marcus is one of my favorite characters that I've ever made.
he is a fun character. I've enjoyed him in the Thorndike and Swan
Hmm.
trilogy that you have. And it's fun to have the characters have cameos. Like you get to know them
Hmm.
and then you go into another one. But how do you keep track of everything? Because that's like its own universe, literally. Like you have to
It
keep track of
is.
everything.
It is a lot. I actually have a story compendium
Okay.
that I list all of the characters, I list all the scenes, I list all the objects, I keep a timeline, and that's in an Excel Google Doc.
Okay.
So each time I get to the edit stage, so I
Hmm.
don't do this as I write. I wait until I get
Okay.
through to basically line edits usually, but even galley proofs.
Okay.
When I know what page numbers things are going to be on, I will start listing in that Google Doc under that title the different characters, the different places, the
Okay.
different scenes in order. And it's a searchable document. So even just today, I was like, what was the name of the butler at Tristan and Melisande Thorndyke's house? I know I gave him a name, but rather than having to go back through all three of those books to find that, I just
Right.
go to that document and search it.
Wow.
So it makes it much nicer for the people that are editing my work. So
Yeah.
I make that document shareable to my macro editor and my line
Okay.
editor so that
Yep.
they can go in and verify if it's in that document, that's how I meant it to be. And
Hmm.
if it says something else in the book, then put a query and I'll figure out if I made a mistake.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
Yeah, that blows my mind when you
Hmm.
create your own world that spans different series and
Hmm.
trilogies and stuff, because my brain does not work like that. Like even the idea of a searchable compendium sounds absolutely terrifying.
Well, one of the reasons that you have to do it is I wrote the first book in this series 6 or 7 years ago.
Okay.
Readers may read all 7 or 8 of them in a 3 week span. And so
Right.
they're on top of all of it.
Yeah.
And they will know if I've made a mistake that I didn't remember because it was years ago that I was writing that manuscript
Yeah,
and
that's true.
something that didn't seem like it was important suddenly
Yeah.
is glaring
Yeah.
now. The other fun thing about it is you get to drop in Easter eggs for faithful readers, right? If you
Mhm.
just pick up, book 4 or whatever, you can read it and it's a standalone story.
Right.
Um, but if you have read the books that came before that, when someone makes one of those cameo appearances or you reference something that happened in one of the previous stories, it's like a little reward for
Yeah.
the faithful reader. And
Yeah.
hopefully they encourage people to maybe go back and pick up those books and fill in the backstory.
Yeah, and I think that's what's fun because you do have kind of a whole spy ring that
Hmm.
travels through. And so you get caught up in one mystery, but then there's kind of reference to something else over here
Hmm.
and this person over here. And you're like, "Ooh, what was that about?" And then, yeah, you want to go back and figure it out. So,
I love dropping in those Easter eggs for readers, but I put a lot of things in these books just to amuse myself.
okay.
Um, In the very first book, you come across the solicitors firm known as Coles, Franks, and Moody,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
Um, those are actually the last names of the three men who propped the front row of the scrum for the All Blacks in the 2015 World Cup in England.
And that's rugby, right?
And that's rugby. So it was Owen Franks, Dane Coles, and Joe Moody
Oh my
were the front row of the
goodness.
scrum. They were, yeah, forwards. The Earl of Whitelock, Sam
Okay.
Whitelock, was in the second row of that scrum. Um, there's a horse in one of the books called Bowden's Best because my favorite rugby player's last name is Bowden. His first name is Bowden. It's Bowden Barrett.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
so I drop all kinds of these little Easter eggs in, and I actually heard from a reader in New Zealand,
Did
where
they
the
say
All
hi?
Blacks are from, and just out of the blue, she wrote. She said, "I really enjoyed this book," and she didn't say anything about the
Oh,
rugby names that are scattered
yeah.
throughout there. Um, and so I just wrote her back and I said, did you notice? And then she said, oh my goodness, when I started looking, there are
Mhm.
so many rugby names, and they're
That's
almost all from the
funny.
All Blacks.
That is so funny. So how
Yeah.
did you get into rugby? Like New
Um,
Zealand team?
if it's a competitive sport with a ball involved, I will watch it,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
So let that be known.
Right.
But rugby, unless you grew up with it as part of your culture, or you have someone to explain it to you, you're trying to fit rugby and NFL football together and they don't,
They don't. No.
right?
No.
So I actually have a friend here in Rochester who was a missionary kid. He grew up in Uganda,
Okay.
but he went to school at a missionary school in Kenya and they played rugby.
Okay.
And so we were at their house and they mentioned something about rugby. And I said, I have always wanted to understand that.
Yeah. Sure.
And so he had some taped.
Okay.
He
Yep.
put it on and taped. I just dated myself there. He had
Well, I
recorded
went right
some.
with it, so apparently I
Yeah.
did. But
Um,
I know what you're
he
talking
blew
about.
the dust off his VCR.
Yeah.
Um, so he actually started it and got up and gave almost like a classroom demonstration of this is what, in my mind, the line of scrimmage is,
Yeah.
right? These are the rules around, it's called the breakdown, every time they
Okay.
make a tackle and recycle the ball. And
Okay.
I got just a handful of the rules, and all of a sudden I'm like, well, this is a great sport. So I started watching it
Okay.
um, because I had an ESPN Plus subscription, and they were showing Southern Hemisphere rugby as one of those weird little side
Yeah.
sports.
Yeah.
So I started watching it and listening to the commentators and learning about rugby, and it is an amazing sport.
Okay.
I believe it was Winston Churchill who said it's a hooligan's game that's played by gentlemen,
Oh, okay.
whereas soccer or football is a gentleman's game that's played by hooligans.
That sounds like Churchill. That's a
Yeah.
total Churchill statement.
They
Yeah.
say that rugby is 80 minutes of pretending you're not hurt, and soccer is 90 minutes of pretending you are.
That's true
Yeah.
about soccer.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
yeah, if anybody is interested I encourage you to watch it and learn a little bit
Yeah.
about it. It's a fascinating sport with a great history.
That's so interesting. So does it date as far back as like the Regency? Like could we someday see rugby in an Erica Vetsch?
Just missed.
Ah.
Rugby is 1830s.
Oh, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
It was actually the legend has it
Okay.
that William Webb Ellis
Okay.
at the private school in Rugby,
Yeah.
decided he was tired of playing soccer and picked up the ball and ran with it. So on my trip to England, we actually visited rugby school, the original pitch where
Okay.
rugby was invented. Got Jane and I, here, Jane and
Yes.
I got our
Yes.
picture next to the William Webb Ellis plaque. It was a fantastic video for anybody who loves rugby.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah,
awesome.
the visit was great.
That's cool. So really the only rugby references we're gonna get is the little Easter eggs that you're putting in
Yeah,
there
the
with
names
the
that I
names.
drop in.
That's
Yeah.
cool. That's cool. all the things that we didn't know when we were reading an Erica Vetsch book that we now know.
Yeah, well, like I said, a lot of times I drop those in just to amuse myself.
You got to. You got to. All right. So a thieving at Carlton House. Can you tell us what goes missing? Like, what are they looking for that was stolen?
It's a pearl and sapphire parure, which is a set of jewelry. So
Okay.
tiara, brooch, necklace, earrings, bracelet
Okay.
that the prince purchased for his hopefully soon to be mistress because he was
Ooh.
quite the womanizer.
Yes.
Um, it goes missing. There are several suspects that could have taken it for their own various reasons. And Sir Bertrand has to join forces with Miss Philippa Cashel,
Ooh.
who is the illegitimate sister of the Duchess of Haverly, to
Mhm.
find out who has taken this and why.
Okay. And can you tell us a little bit about her? Is she like spunky, or is she timid, or is she going to give Bertie a run for his money?
At one time, she was like the most sought after courtesan in
Ooh. Okay.
London.
Okay.
She is the illegitimate daughter of the Earl of
Mhm.
Tiptree. Her sister is a duchess,
Okay.
and she is sort of rescued out of that life. She wants to leave that life
Hmm.
and has now made it her mission to help other women leave that life.
Okay.
So they have started a school for those women to train them in skills that they will need to either be domestic help or work in a
Okay.
seamstress shop or a milliner's shop, dairymaid, those sort of things, so that they can support themselves because there just were not that many opportunities for women
Yeah.
during the Regency
Right.
to make a living.
Hmm.
It's one of the reasons why at any given time they estimated that there were about 70,000 prostitutes that made at least part of their living on the
Wow.
streets during Regency London
Wow.
times.
That's really
Yeah,
sad. That's
it is
really
very
sad.
sad.
Yeah.
Oftentimes they were married women, but needing to put food on the table for their kids.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was not an easy
Hmm.
life for women during the Regency, especially if you didn't have any money.
Right. Yeah. I mean,
So,
there's this glamorized element we have to the Regency that
mhm,
you kind of go into a Regency novel expecting everybody to just be filthy rich and privileged, but that wasn't
mhm.
necessarily the
Pretty
bulk of
dresses and
humanity.
balls
Yeah.
and carriages and yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's one of the things I do like to do with my books is without without exposing too much of the seedy underbelly
Right.
of London, letting the reader know that there were other experiences
Right.
than just, walking through the lovely fields on your way to the parsonage.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The
Yeah.
peaceful wildflower picking along
Hmm.
the pond. So a
Yeah.
courtesan was, and maybe I'm wrong on this, you can correct me, I might be dreadfully wrong. But if I understand it right, a courtesan was actually a young woman who was kind of the elite um
She would
mistress
have
type
been, in
circle.
today's vernacular, she would have been a high-end call girl.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
They had several names for it. Sometimes they were called Cyprians,
Okay.
from the land of Cyprus.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, yeah, they had a lot of different
Yeah.
euphemisms for
Right.
high-end call girl. But a courtesan would have been more expensive, better
Hmm.
looking, better dressed.
Etc. Etc.
Yeah.
It's funny because I remember anytime you read something in the Regency era, you often hear about courtesans. I'm probably
Hmm.
pronouncing that wrong, but I remember when I was a kid, I would hear a courtesan, and I always thought it was a girl who wasn't quite a princess.
Ah,
Like, there
well,
was the princess, and then you were just one rung below the princess, and that's what I thought she was. And so I thought it was this really lofty, important
that's
thing.
not a bad metaphor.
No, no. When you grow up then and find out that's not exactly what they were,
Not exactly.
your fantasy
Yeah.
of, beautiful Regency courtesans gets a little
Mhm.
bit jaded, but it is what it is.
Okay, so I have one of those. It's not quite princess, but when I was a kid, I read a book where these children wanted something very badly, but they needed to do their chores. And then
Okay.
it said they did their chores with alacrity. And in my mind, I thought alacrity was grudging, and I hate this because how else do you do your chores
Right.
when you're
There
a
you
kid,
go. Right.
right? I was almost this many days old, it feels like, when I learned that alacrity meant with eagerness and willingly. And I'm
Mhm.
like, what was wrong with those kids?
I
So
know.
whenever I hear the word alacrity, I crack myself up thinking, boy, was I wrong on that one.
That's not a word you hear too often either.
No, thankfully.
Yes. Yes. You'd be proud of me though. The other day I was at a wedding and it was outside. And I actually thought of you. I did. I thought of you.
Okay.
We were outside at a wedding and it was the brilliant summer wedding with the sun just beating down.
Melting you.
And I look over and one of my son's friends is sitting there and he has an umbrella. So he's sitting under the shade. And
Parasol.
I instantly thought of one of your books. I thought of Regency era. And I looked at him and I said, are you working on saving your complexion with the beauty of your parasol? And this 11-year-old kid looks at me and he goes, what's parasol?
Oh no. Oh,
And
teaching
I
moment.
said, no, 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 you can't do that. He goes, you're always using big words, Jamie, and I don't know what they mean. And I said, here, I have a couple books for you to read, dude.
Oh, that's
Oh,
great.
that was pretty, that was,
Hopefully he went home and looked up parasol and then wondered why he would need to keep his complexion snowy
yeah,
white.
yeah. Well, I told him all the fine ladies of the Regency era carry parasols to protect their complexion from the sun so they don't grow freckles. And he looks
Yeah.
at me and he goes, I don't care about freckles. It's not a parasol. He goes, it's an umbrella. I'm like, it's not raining.
Do you know they went to such extremes to keep their complexion pale that they would take small doses of arsenic,
Yeah,
poison themselves on
I know.
purpose so that they would have that chalk white skin.
Which is absolutely unreal to me. They
Yeah.
didn't they put arsenic in other things too, like beauty products and things like that, because it
In
would.
in beauty products, but also anything at the time that had a green dye. So dresses that were dyed, the fabric was green. If your wallpaper was
Okay.
green, your carpet, that somehow arsenic bound that green dye to the fabric so it would stay vibrant instead of turning that kind of mossy green,
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
gray kind of
that's
color.
great.
Yeah. So arsenic was readily available. You could buy it from any apothecary.
Mhm.
Um, there were more than a few gentlemen who ate dinner and didn't wake up after. So their
Yep,
wives would just sprinkle a little bit of extra.
yep.
But women often suffered arsenic poisoning, not just because they were
Yeah.
taking it for their complexion, but they were absorbing it with all of their long sleeve gowns. The only thing that
Wow.
saved a lot of them was what they wore so many undergarments, layers between them and the dyed gown.
Oh, sure. So it kept it from
Um,
seeping into the
so
skin.
yeah, it would keep it from absorbing into their skin quite as much. But their sleeves, they didn't wear usually undergarments under their sleeves. So if they were lined, they were better
Okay.
off. But if it was an unlined sleeve, they just had an arsenic soaked piece of cloth right next to their skin.
Wow.
There's a lot of
Wow.
scope for story in there.
Yeah, there is. There's a lot of stuff you can do with that. So does arsenic make its way into any of your books yet?
Maybe.
Maybe. That's a
Stay
loaded
tuned
maybe. Ooh.
for book number 3 in the series.
Ooh. I love it. That's good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to get some true Regency arsenic tales coming from Erica Vetsch. This is good. This is good.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. Well, the book is called A Thieving at Carlton House.
Mhm.
It's the first one, and there's going to be 3 in this trilogy.
There are 3 in this series.
Okay.
Almost finished with book number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then that should release I think next summer.
Okay. All right.
So we're kind of on a 9-10 month
Right.
cycle
Mm-hmm.
with these
Yep. That
because it
works.
takes a long time to write them and a long time to edit them.
It does. It's not a quick process. No. I love it when readers are like, write faster. And you're like, I
Yeah.
can't.
Yeah. It doesn't work that way.
No, this is as fast as it's going to go. So, but if readers who are just getting to know you haven't read your books, they can go
Mhm.
back to the first book in the connected Haverly universe, which would be what's the title of that one?
It's called The Lost Lieutenant.
Okay.
If you go to my website, ericavetsch.com, I
Okay.
have all of my books are in a downloadable PDF
Mm-hmm.
because in another iteration of my writing career, I did a lot of writing of American West,
Right.
cowboy, westward expansion
Yep.
kind. And you can find all of those books plus everything that's in the Haverly universe. And there should be links to take you to various retailers where you could pre-order
Okay.
A Thieving at Carlton House
Okay.
and see the pretty cover art.
It's
So,
gorgeous. I've seen the
uh,
cover art. It's
Yeah,
great.
so Philippa is on the cover of this one. I have seen books 2 and 3. So, yeah, they did all the covers at once,
Did
and I
they?
can't wait to unveil book number 2 to
Ooh,
you.
that's
But
exciting.
watch
Yeah.
ericavetch.com.
I was just gonna say, where do we go so that we make sure that we are the first to know and first to
If you
see?
want to be the first to know, then there's a place on the website to sign up for my newsletter because newsletter subscribers get all the news first. So you
Yep.
will see the pictures before they go live on social media.
Yay! Can't wait. Love it. Well, if anybody knows me, they know I'm a diehard Erica Vetsch fan. So you can't go wrong if you're listening to this podcast. Highly endorsed. Read them
Mm,
because you'll be
thank
losing out if
you.
you don't. So yeah. Well, no, I'm dead serious. I love all your books. So I sometimes your books put me to sleep, but I mean that in a good way because I always
Mm.
listen to a Regency when I go to bed at night.
Oh,
This is
nice.
this is a little thing about me. I'll read Sarah Ladd or Julie Clausen or Erica Vetsch,
Mhm.
and I'll go through all the audiobooks. And so they're great. And I figured out why. Not just because I love Regency, they're always read with an English accent. And there's
Mhm.
something lulling about an English accent.
Yeah, it's got a certain lyricism,
It
a
does.
rhythm to it.
It does. I was trying to listen to a different book, which was equally as interesting, but it was read with an American accent. And I'm like, I'm not getting sleepy. This isn't
Mhm.
working. And I switched over to Regency and I'm like, "Oh, I'm out." But oh, yeah. So great. Everybody should go get your books. I think I've said that 87 times now, but I mean it with sincerity. And A Thieving at Carlton House comes out in September. And thanks for educating us on rugby.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a passion.
I'm actually kind of curious now to go look up because we have ESPN Plus for whatever reason. I don't know
Yeah,
why,
I don't
but
know if it's available on there anymore, but
okay.
if you go on YouTube and look up,
Oh,
just type in like All Blacks full match, you'll be able
okay.
to pull up some previous games
Okay. And then
um,
we'll understand Erica Vetch a little bit more.
a little bit more.
All right. Thanks for being on with us today, Erica. This has been
Oh,
so much fun.
yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a good time.